So what I'd like to show right now is something that a lot of people don't actually know about. I mean, there obviously are some. Um, One of the questions I get are, can you only make textures? The questions that I get from students is, can I only make the textures inside a 3D coat for my models, or can I have textures that I built in another piece of software, or like a base texture that I've created, and somehow import it and put it on my model and use it as some sort of base texture? Now, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can do that with the photo painting tools, okay, which are located over here, okay, under materials here. Say, for instance, you can like paint with different types of textures. But this is one, and a lot of people that have been using 3D Coat for a while know about that. But the other one is it's sort of hidden up here in the texture panel under import. So you can import diffuse map, which in this case, it realistically is just a color map, like the way a color map would be inside of say if you're using Lightwave. You can import specular map. You can import a normal map, displacement map. There's a lot of different things that you can import, but in most cases, people are asking about importing normal maps and color maps. So say you were working in a program like ZBrush, or Modo or anything like that, or even Lightwave or any other 3D application, something that can generate a color map or a normal map. But you want to continue detailing in 3D Coat, because 3D Coat has a lot of, actually has a really nice painting tool set that you might not be able to get in other packages. But sometimes we have a tendency of baking things like base color maps inside of other programs, and then we just sort of want to tweak them and reuse them. So let's fly over here to Lightwave. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very basic, a ball shape. Okay. And let's just save this as ball UV'd, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so we're just going to create a UV map for it here in Lightwave. If you've never used Lightwave's UV mapping tools, we could do that in 3D Coat, but we're just going to do it very quickly here in Lightwave. So I'm going to go under Map, and we're going to use just in Lightwave 11.5, they just released the ADF UV Unwrap tool. It's a very nice tool. Let's just go to Edge Mode, and I'm going to just try to select that loop there. Just deselect those. And whoops. Okay, let's try that again. I think we got our loop going all the way around. Looks that way. Okay, so what I want to do at this point is I want to go into UV texture mode. Okay, and let's just click ABF UV Unwrap. Okay, perfect. We have our UV map. I'm going to go T for move and hold down Control to constrain. Whoops. Undo. Sorry, I'm going to deselect that. T for move. And let's just slide this into the middle. And we can always check things to see. Looks like we have some slight we may have some slight overlapping a little bit. Yeah, right in here. We zoom in so we can see a little bit of overlapping. So all we need to do in that particular case, okay, let's just come in like so, And let me move in, make sure that we haven't accidentally selected anything that shouldn't be selected. Let's go T for move. We're in free move mode, so that allows us to move the UV islands around. Let's go T for move, and we'll just move. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep them lined up just for lining up our texture. Might make things a little cleaner, but I hit H for stretch and maybe just size them down a little bit and just nudge them over. Okay, good enough. It doesn't have to be anything special perfect. I just want to make sure that they were no longer overlapping each other. Overlapping polygons creates distortions. Okay, let's hit S for save. We can make this up the object if we want. Okay. And let's go back to 3D Coat. So there's no texture on this ball that we've just made. Let's go import model per pixel painting. We're not going to be doing any displacement maps. Let's go ball UV. Okay, it says keep UV. That means that when it automatically defaults to keep UV, we know that there's already UV map on it, and we already actually made it. Okay, so 18,432, and just for fun, we can make this a I don't know, we can make it a 4K ball if we want. And the UV, you can see where it says unwrap. Okay, it says UV set name. That's actually, if you look over here under T for textures, unwrap. That's the name that was given automatically by the ABF UV unwrap tool. We could have changed it if we would have called it dog or Bob. When we imported, it would have said dog or Bob here. So I'm just trying to make sure that you guys are knowing what's going on when you're importing and exporting, and why certain, names or numbers and all that kind of stuff actually shows up in these panels, so that you can develop problem-solving skills when things don't work out correctly. So let's click OK. So we're going to import this. Okay, so it has a UV map. We click on UV textures. Okay, you can see that the ball was actually physically, it was actually split in half. Okay, and let me go to, let's go back to paint mode. And so right now we don't have a texture. So we could, like I said, go over here to our photo paint stuff, and, we could grab this and, say, okay, well, I don't want to have to paint this stuff by hand, so I could paint on, using photos and have a pre-made texture. That's easy enough to do. Okay. Or I could do something like this. Go under textures, go under import. Let's grab a color map, so diffuse map. And I can import things like, okay, this was sort of like an elephant skin. Let's open that up. Okay. And so what this is it's actually applied this elephant skin texture to the ball. Okay. We didn't even have to do any painting at all. So it took, let's go back to textures, import. Let's preview. So what it did was it put this, and it layered this image map over top of, let's go to modeler. It loaded this up right here. It put that elephant texture right over top of this UV map. So that's how it's projecting. That's how it's projecting on top of this surface. And we can also, underneath the textures, we could also bring in we can also import the normal map that goes along with that texture. And let's just click OK. And so you can see that you can bring in you can import the normal map that was designed for that texture. So notice that this is a normal map, so you don't actually get to see any displacement on the surface. We were talking about displacement earlier. Normal maps will do it, but you can see that it's faking the bump for the skin. Doesn't look very pretty. It might need some adjusting the actual normal map itself. But anyways, it just goes to show you that you can import normal maps from another piece of software. Like I said, if you were working in ZBrush and you had done some normal mapping in there, you could import a normal map as well. So once again, this is under the Textures panel, and you just go under Import, and that will this will load up these particular this will load up these particular image maps for what you want to do. Now let's load up some different stuff. Under Import and Normal Map. Actually, I'm going to what do I want to do? I'm just going to go New. Okay, we're going to start over. We're going to go File, Import, per pixel painting, and grab our ball again. Okay, we'll go back to 4K, and I could have kept the other example in, but I wanted something a little bit more defined. I want to grab a different image map just so I can show you a little bit better. I'm not going to load up the normal map this time. I'll quickly show you. Okay, the problems with this and what we have to do with image maps that we've just randomly placed in. Now you can see right here, this is the, you can see the seam. You can see the UV seam running. The texture doesn't quite line up. So there are ways of sort of cleaning that stuff up. You could do something like grab a clone brush and hold down Control key, grab some, grab some sampling. We'll go into the clone brush at a later date in more detail, but hold down the Control key, it samples the area, just like in Photoshop, and we can try to smooth that edge out so that we're actually blending and killing that actual UV seam. Sample. So there are all different things that can be done. Or you could we could load up that elephant texture inside of the photo paint and then come in and try to blend and smooth out some of these UV seams. So you can see, there it is. You can see it very drastically, the UV seam. And so we can get a very quick base coat, a layer of paint on an object very quickly just by loading up a random texture, and then use 3D Coats tools just to clean up some of those areas, and then do whatever other editing that you want to do to it. So let's load up a different texture into that channel instead. Let's load up this dirt texture. Okay, so basically we have this crazy ball thing going on. Okay, and it's definitely not perfect, but it's a good way that we can actually physically start with something. So probably what I would do is I would go in first. For example, you could do something like let's switch to a black. And I want to zoom in, and I'd probably start, let's Let me go to opacity. Let's put this up, back up to 100. I'd probably start filling in some of these cracks. Now, if you feel that it's too dark, Control and do, sometimes it's best to take a sample of the color and then go in and try to do stuff. Now, sometimes the paint stroke might be a little bit too thick, and sometimes maybe 100% might not be exactly what you want. You might want to try a lower opacity level, and then come in and start playing. Maybe a different brush might be more suitable. Okay, and like I said, I just try to start blending some of these cracks, and further away you don't notice the harshness of the brushes. And sometimes, once again, if the opacity is too strong, it's best to start with a lower value when you're starting to try to possibly blend things together. So we can sort of play with this a little bit just to give you an idea of where we're going. Now you can see at the poles of this object, let me go to View, and let's go Wireframe, Low Poly, and you can see where all the yellow lines are coming. This is the pole, and there's some actual ugly stretching going on in this texture right about here. So if we go up to, let's clear that back out again, you can see how this is going a little bit ugly here. So we might need to clean a lot of this up. It's there's some texture stretching happening here. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go down to my color picker, click down on a spot. Whoops, sorry. Color picker, click down over here, grab some white, go back to my brush, and just sort of kill some of this starry, spiky stuff, because that's a telltale sign of a UV poles kind of stretched out. So get rid of some of this ugliness, and then we can paint over top of it with some better looking cracks. I'm just sort of killing that out. See how we're painting across that UV seam here. Now, notice that there's some differentiation in the color of this. So if we want to sometimes get a smoother blend, just going like this might not always, even if there's an opacity level, it might not look so good, because now we have a solid color here. So let's undo that. And if we go with our clone brush, let's set this back to white so that nothing's doing anything strange. Okay, let's sample this. And so we're actually sampling these colors over here and sort of helping to blend across some of these areas here. But we're also grabbing multiple colors at once. And you can see that UV stretching problem going on over here as well. So we could grab some stuff in here and just try to fill in some of those ugly, spiky looking doodads there, and just, like I said, just grab some stuff and to start cleaning it up. But a great way to start, once again, is by connecting some of these cracks together, especially around, well, where the UV seams are, because everything seems to cut off dead along the UV seam. So let's go back here. Let's switch this back to black, and we are 66%. Zooming right in here. Now we only have the color channel on at the moment. Okay, you could paint with a normal map setting at the same time. Sometimes I like to do some of this. I mean, you can do both at once, but I sometimes like to paint the channels separately for individual control. Now, if you notice some of these areas, there's quite a bit of a drastic color tint difference between the two. So once again, you could do a color sample and then go back to a brush and just kind of gently try to paint across that. Maybe grab a sample from over here. Grab the brush again. Paint that across. Or once again, hit the clone brush. Hold down the control key. Sample. Oops. Keep sampling. And try to kill ugly edges like this. Now, I believe we put down a 4K map, so notice when we zoom in, it starts to pixelate a little bit. So it's good. A lot of times it's good to start with a fairly high resolution map for while you're editing. You may later on, dial that down, say in Photoshop. You might only need a 2K map, depending on what your purpose is. But if you're going to be something that's going to be zoomed in on, then it's good to have this at the start. And if it turns out that your object is going to be something that's going to be in the background, it's nice to edit at a high resolution so that you can get a proper looking image, even if it is going to be in the background. So if you wind up needing both. So in other words, the moral of the story is, higher resolution maps are a great way to go, because in case you don't know what the output is going to be or how close the camera is going to be to your object. So once again, you can come in and just start, trying to connect some of this stuff up and try to get rid of this harsh edge. And so basically what I'm trying to get at is we want to learn how to sort of blend some pre-made textures and edit them until we literally have created our own. But it's nice to sometimes start off with something, a base texture, so that you won't have to spend as much time developing and tweaking and, the constant layering. I mean, this will be a full job all on its own. Just cleaning up this. We only have really one edge. Now, we do have some issues here. We have some grass that kind of got in the way, so we probably wouldn't wouldn't want that, but that would be easy enough to, once again, we can kill that simply by, once again, clone brush. I could hit the control key and I could come in and start painting that. I'm going to sample that again. Let's kill this grass. Rotate this up. Oop. Let's move this over. I'm going to sample that in there. And we got our little bit of our scene here. Tackle that a little bit. And this is kind of squiggly and ugly, so I want to kind of sample that. Paint over top. Sample that stuff. And there's a whole bunch of work, once again, that can be done to really bring this out and make it look really good. And it's always good to kind of like just keep pulling, zooming in and zooming out to see what it looks like from far away. Zooming in sometimes to say, oh, geez, that might not be so good, and not sure if it's going in the direction you need it. Maybe, it feels like the brush stroke, maybe that's too thick or whatever, but sometimes when you pull back and you look at it from the distance that it's probably going to be viewed at, and you go, okay, well that's not looking so bad. We do have a lot of cleanup to do in here. I don't want to waste all our time just filling in the seams. I think you get the concept of that. Now, what we can do from here to further develop this. So say, okay, let's turn off the color channel. Let's turn on the normal map or the depth channel, and let's just put this back to white again. Okay, so we got our brush. Okay, and what depth, 5%, 100%. Okay, so you can see right now if I just sculpted into the surface with the depth on full, so that might not be so great. Let's try 50, and I might, around some of these cracks, I may build up the surface a bit. Okay, or I could, go in, say, like with a negative depth value and kind of carve in some of these cracks. I might kind of like try to, dig into the surface. You can see how I'm kind of carving in here. Rotate it. So you can see how that's kind of digging in. But if you want that cracked layer look where it's the texture is coming upwards, like, sorry, the earth is actually coming up. So right now I'm sculpting into the surface. We could go negative 100%. Okay, so that sort of looks like it's, not sure if you're easily seeing this on your screen, but we're digging in. But if we go back to, back up to 100% this way, now we may need to change, our brush size. See, that might be, that's like that's too extreme. We might need to bring that to, let's try 50% again. And, or we could try maybe a different brush. Okay, we can hit some smoothing, but sort of blend some of this. Let me find a nice crack here that we can kind of try to emphasize here, something that doesn't have the grass near it, sort of distracting for the moment. So if I build up in a positive direction around, say, a crack like this, okay, and then I hit smoothing, just want to try to smooth out the outer edge. And it's slowly kind of building up, and then we hit shift for smoothing. We kind of got to just try to blend that, but I'm trying to develop it so that it's looking like there's some depth, some physical depth on this surface. And it's just like regular sculpting. You're gonna, in ZBrush and 3D Coat, when we're doing sculpting or voxel sculpting, it's sort of a matter of building up the surface, okay, and then using the smooth to kind of smooth it down, and we build it up again, and then we smooth it down until things start to look closer to where we want them to be. So it looks like there's these, we have some depth on the surface, and we have the cracks. Now, I'm going to hit, it's going to go in the negative direction. I'm sculpting, holding down the control key, going in a negative fashion. Now I let go of the control key, and I'm sort of trying to build up around the crack. Then I can hit the control key, and we can dig in again. So hopefully you can see it sort of how that depth is going. Now we hit the smoothing. Just kind of so you can sort of start to see the depth is starting to come out a bit. Let's go 100% again. And build that up. Hit shift. There we go. So moving towards utilizing the the smoothing tool can really help out. And let's really build up some of these cracks. Okay, and smooth this baby down a bit. Yeah, so now you can start to feel the feel these cracks. Remember, this is just a photo. There was no depth information, so you can add this as we go along.